Marco Reus. Daniel Malen! Wonderful!
Fantastic from Reus. Jude Bellingham, that's excellent. Jude Bellingham, this is absolutely brilliant. Jude Bellingham! Absolutely magnificent.
Reina, brilliant from the American. Just like that.
Not the best of clearances. Oh, what a volley! Mats Hummels!
Grant in for Haaland! Like he's never been away! The man in front of goal who is simply deadly.
Hey, welcome to the BVB podcast. My name's Jake. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening. If this is your first time, welcome. You can find us on all your preferred podcast sources and YouTube by searching the BVB podcast. Also on Twitter and Instagram at the BVB pod. You can reach us on email too if you want to go old school and send us a little email message at virtual letter at. No, it's not at. I do it every single time. The BVBpod@gmail.com. Like I said, my name's Jake. Luckily, I'm not doing this on my own because I'm already struggling about a minute into the podcast, and Carver is with me. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I just now noticed that jacket behind you. Is that new?
Oh yeah, I got this during really nice. the sale when they were doing the sale.
Yeah.
When I got my sweater, which I wore when we were watching the game over the weekend, and it was
got a lot of compliments.
I got some compliments, but a lot of questions like, "You wearing a sweater right now?" Because it was like 80 degrees and we were outside. I was like, my shirt was dirty. I had to rock the sweater.
You're just soaked.
It's a nice reversible.
Yeah, it looks nice.
They only have the Dortmund logo on the yellow part, not on the black side.
I was wondering that as well. Actually, that would look cool if it had like the black symbol with like the yellow black jerseys.
I rock the black side most because yellow makes me look sickly because I'm a very pale person. Yellow is not my color. Anyways,
same here.
I know you can't see. Well, I have posted this jacket multiple times on our Twitter. Mainly, it's the photo of my dog wearing it. If you want to go check that out at the BVB pod. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while since we recorded because we had 2 games to watch. And last episode, we talked about Bürki, and that was all preliminary as far as we think we're getting this Bürki announcement for the MLS team in St. Louis. So we had a big episode on that. We had a lot of new listeners from that, which was really cool. And then we woke up the next day to the news pretty much. And then we also had a game that day, last Wednesday. It was a crazy day. And I remember that day waking up. So first of all, I don't know if I mentioned it on the last podcast, but I'm a big Australian rules football fan. And the season started for Aussie rules football. There's a 15-hour time difference from where we are in America. And so their season started, the first game of the season was at 3 a.m. So I did wake up and I watched that game at 3 a.m. Till about 6. And then I went back to bed and I basically woke up to the Bürki news. And I just pushed off my day job and everything because I was having to do so much tweeting and everything for the Bürki news. And then the Dortmund U19s had their UEFA Youth League game at 10:30, and then Dortmund played at 12:30. And then I'm a Tottenham supporter, which I've mentioned before, and they played at 2:30. It was a nuts day, and I mean somehow I got my work done in a somewhat timely manner that day, but it was a nuts day, and I don't know. That whole day felt like a week, but with all that said, we did have a Dortmund game that day. So they played Mainz that day. We had Köln over the weekend. So we're going to, of course, recap those games. I just went on a rant just because I wanted to. What was me? I had a crazy day. But no, I mean, that was all back to last week's episode. It was really cool to talk about Bürki. If you don't know, Carver and I, we're American. We live in St. Louis. So the Bürki news was pretty crazy, pretty wild.
Yeah, I was skeptical even after seeing Fabrizio Romano tweets saying it looked like it was a deal pretty much done. I was still like, let's wait another at least 24 hours and see. And that very next morning, St. Louis City was making those announcements and the teaser trailers, and I was like, are you kidding me? It's, again, a huge addition to the city and to the new team next year. We'll easily have one of, if not the best, goalkeeper in the MLS in Roman Bürki.
Yeah, so that night too, the Wednesday night I remember my whole point of me going on that rant was that Bürki was official.
Yeah,
that was the whole point of that story is Bürki was official. And then that Wednesday night, I also am part of a St. Louis soccer podcast called Flyover Footy. We also recorded an episode that night, so it was just a pretty nonstop day. But they, one of our guys, his name's Matt. Shout out Matt Baker for Flyover Footy. He's very stats and detail oriented. He knows all the rules about MLS, and he kind of broke down Bürki's stats compared to the top goalkeepers in MLS. And he's like, if you just look at the stats up front, he's right up there. He's level, if not better, than the top MLS goalkeeper.
Yeah, on paper and also in real life too. I mean, the man has competed in the Champions League for a number of years. He's played at one of the best teams in the Bundesliga, and he was, in my opinion, at one time one of the most, or arguably the most underrated keeper in Europe. Granted, he had a bit of a pretty big dip after that, but still very excited for him to come.
Yeah, and then the good news for the Dortmund fans who don't care about him coming to MLS or St. Louis City is he's going to be off the books. So that means
get him off the wage bill.
Some money open for some player signings, hopefully this summer. So yeah, I guess on all the quick Bürki recap. Now we can jump into the recap of the games. Before we get into the game specifics, since we're coming off 2 games, it seemed like the title race was on for a little bit. What's your just overall thoughts? How are you feeling after the last 2 games?
Oh my God. I mean, Anton mentioned probably a month and a half back before the second leg against Rangers where a friend told him, like, is the title race on? And he's like, you tell me, I have no idea. And shit, we still don't know. Every other week, gosh. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just not happening. And then Bayern drop, what was it, 4 points in 2 games. And it's like, well, and then we actually capitalize on those weekends. And it's like, is the title race back on? We'll get another massive win at Mainz. And I actually thought so. And then also the tie against Köln kind of gave us a pretty big reality check. So
yeah, it's frustrating. And before the Mainz game on our last episode, I talked about the game before was we had to grind it out. Like one goal win, which we saw again, and I was like, it was kind of nice. It was nice to see like the solidity and the just grinding through as a real like kind of team performance to get it done, which we saw again, which that was nice. And that gives me hope. Like that performance, people might say it was not a great performance, but to grind it out and stay on top and get the win and not concede. That gives me a little more hope. It's like maybe we can, maybe as we start, maybe get players back. I don't know. We have more injuries again, but if players are coming back towards the end of the season, maybe we can grind out this season. But it's not, at this point, it's not up to us. It's up to Bayern.
Yeah, it's Bayern's
collapsing.
To lose. Yeah.
So I'm not that optimistic, but it's just going to be a nice bonus if it happens, but I'm not saying that
it'll be a true miracle for sure. But like you mentioned, I mean, before Köln, we had just 1 goal conceded in our last 5 league games and 2 clean sheets in a row with that makeshift back 4, which if you wanted to get into just the lineups about Mainz, but again, an unchanged 11 from Bielefeld. This was going to be a much bigger ask than against Bielefeld. I mean, that was a huge challenge within itself, but we were already asking a lot from that makeshift back 4, and this is just an entirely different challenge. It's an entirely different team that's been in the top half of the table for what looked like most of this season. So it was pretty nerve-wracking going into this one.
Yeah, so the starting lineup, we had Kobel in goal, obviously, Paslak back right. We had Chan and Pongracic as our center backs, and Schultz on fullback on the left. We had Dahoud and Witzel, and then Bellingham, Hazard, Wolf, and Malen up top. And I mean, we've said so many times before that we're such a strong attacking team. Obviously, that's been a little different with all the injuries, but this game was reversed a little bit. We were way weaker, and just the overall performance is like our back line was surprisingly solid, and they held up, and they played better than like front line.
Oh yeah, given how our back 4 looked on paper, you thought it was going to be, arguably a bloodbath. But yeah, our back 4 was the stars of this game easily. The last 2 games, I think our defensive back 4 have been better than our attack easily, which is something I thought I would never say on a Borussia Dortmund podcast. That is entirely shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, coming off the Bielefeld, going into the Bielefeld game last week, I remember everyone was thinking, oh, this is going to be a train wreck. We're going to get torn up in the back, and that's where the back line actually stepped up. We're like, oh, man, they look really good, and they did it again. So week after week, we didn't know if Passlack was going to get the start again. He did. He was kind of rewarded for his efforts, even though
which was surprising to see. Even though he played well, I was like, I can't guarantee he's going to get another start. And wow,
I know. And I mean, we don't have a lot of depth. So what are your real options? So, but I'm glad that he did get another chance, and he played well again. I thought he did well again.
Yeah, he's not the most technically brilliant player, but he's going to give his energy the whole 90 minutes every single game, and that whole back four had that kind of mentality these entire 2 games, really. But you go into the first half, so outside of the back four, we looked like we couldn't complete a pass to save our goddamn life. You know, we had similar struggles from the previous week, but it was hard to get much of anything going fluidity-wise. And I think Hazard is an entire 90 minutes in Mainz completed just 54% of his passes. And before knowing that stat even, I was just watching him those first opening minutes, and I was like, Jesus Christ. He's been rough to watch this past season.
So just on the Hazard note, I know we've been asked this multiple times on Twitter and stuff, but how, and maybe we talked about it before, but how, I guess for next season, would you like to see him out the door or stick around? Because push him out, and he had like, I remember it was only like a couple games to run, but I remember earlier in the season there was a couple games or a few games where him and Bellingham were linking up like crazy. Like three combinations together, and he was looking decent. And I know he hasn't been performing consistently all season, but for next season, because it's not just about getting him out, he's a player who still plays. Even when we're healthy, he'll still get a run of games or come in on as a sub. So there's so many people we want to push out, but would you rather, is it more of a liability? Do we need to push him out, or would you rather, I mixed up my question there. I don't know what I'm saying, but, or keep him as a squad player, because if he goes, we have to bring someone in, and I just don't know how likely that we bring in enough people to cover who we want to push out.
Yeah, it's not as simple as having like a like for like, winger for winger. If he leaves, are we going to sign another winger of his ability? And it's a tough one, you know. He's only 28, so he's, in my opinion, should be entering his prime, his athletic prime, and hopefully his football prime as well. But he's been really inconsistent in the last year or two. So, you know, you're looking at him thinking like maybe he's not good enough for the wages that he's on and for the level that we're demanding of him. But at the same time, you know, who are we going to go after right now? Because we are already very, very in desperate need for a winger. We're pretty bare in that position. So I don't really know if you got rid of him, you run the risk of not picking up another winger that's a true winger and can fill that hole, because right now we're really lacking players out wide.
One potential solution, which I asked you on the weekend, and then I didn't even realize, but Knauf, who's on loan and has been starting and playing pretty well. A couple matches ago, he was like player of the match. He's been doing really well, and I thought he was going to come back next season, but his loan's a year and a half. I mean, I guess we have the option to recall that. But
and we very well might later in the fall if, you know, things are going awry. But yeah, again, especially if he's going to be out on loan, you're looking at the bench for wingers, and you can't really find much of anyone outside of him that's going to be playing, you know, kind of on the left-hand position at times. So I would personally try to keep him. Hazard. Yes.
Yeah. I do worry that with this season, like where we really need him to step up and be consistent with all the injuries and outs we've had, and he hasn't been able to hit that consistent stride. That's what worries me a little bit, and kind of makes me lean to getting him out. But if you can't bring anyone in, he can still do some good sometimes. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on Hazard.
And we're also playing him out of position a lot, because we're not only lacking any depth in the attacking wingers, or as attacking wingers, but also defensive wingers. I mean, you look at our fullbacks right now, there's a reason why Passlack was starting the last few games, is because 3 of our right backs are injured right now. And after yesterday, Passlack is also injured. So again, you have little to no depth in that position. So that's whenever you're going to have to start probably looking at players like Chan to play kind of on the right, which if you want to get into Chan real quick, he's been in my opinion, pretty phenomenal these past few weeks. Again, with the makeshift back fours that we've been having to put out on the field, and for him to go out and organize the way he is. I mean, he's organizing players like Pongracic, Schultz, and Paslak. You have those three players aside of you, and you're getting 2 clean sheets in a row and making us look that solid defensively is very impressive. You cannot argue against that. But also as well, I mean, my God, how many times did he track back and save our asses? Anton Stack in the 15th minute. I know he broke our press kind of in their third, and Witsel wasn't going to be able to track it down because Witzel's so damn slow. So Stack had that run that was like, it looked like a good at least 40 or 50-yard run, and Shan was all the way back sprinting and had that very crucial tackle to stop that attack because 15 minutes in, that would have been 1-0 to Mainz.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the moments of the match.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like just saving it. It's so early in the game, too, but that was
it definitely was
such a huge tackle, and it was so awesome. And I think that kind of got people fired up, too. I mean, players, I was fired up, obviously, but got people like his teammates fired up, and to see him like hustle so hard. Yeah, he was great. He's been great. And like you said, to be the leader and solidify that makeshift back line, he's been doing it so well. And he's a player who I would love to keep because it's also one that you see out in the Twitter sphere that people are like, get him out of your cell. I mean, people want to sell everyone, but I would love to see him stay, even if his role is shifting to
it's looked like it's been shifting, or the majority of his career here at Dortmund has been more of like a center back than a defensive mid, which was where he spent most of his career before that.
Well, we talked last year, or not last year. We talked last week about center back depth, specifically for next year. If Akanji goes, if Pongracic goes, well, I think he's gone because he's on loan. Zagadou, they're all Akanji, Zagadou, all question marks. Hummel's old. Of course, Sule's coming in. Schlotterbeck, that's who we want, but nothing is certain yet. So center back depth, I think if we do bring in that center, like a center defensive mid like we want,
which we should, that should definitely be on my first or second priority.
I think Chan is a lock to stay, and because he can do both roles, like he can give us center D depth in both positions, and he's proved that he's a leader and he's been solid and consistent, especially when we need him. Yeah, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he's organized very, very well. You cannot argue that he hasn't made our back four look arguably more impressive than our best back four in the last 2 weeks. And, I mean, he makes boneheaded mistakes still, don't get me wrong. He still has made some very unnecessary fouls and gotten himself into trouble at times, which that is arguably his biggest weakness to his game, and that's what he needs to improve upon. But my God, has he been impressive, especially in a back three. And I think he can really do well in that position of, whoever we want to line up with Sule in that back three as a third center back. But I think Chan could have a real shout there if Akanji leaves and Zagadou leaves, which is looking likely from both of them.
Yeah. How did you feel? So in this game, we also saw Reina and Holland back. They came off the bench. How did you feel about them?
Well, I mean, we'll get into Holland in a bit because he was really quiet these past 2 games. Yeah. I can't think of much of things that he did. He missed a handful of opportunities and just doesn't really look that into it. It doesn't look like his heart is really in this club at the moment. I think he's got his sights set on elsewhere, sadly. But, I was very critical of Reina for these past 2 games initially. And then I went back and I rewatched these halves, and I actually think he did pretty decent. He held up the ball pretty well. He was able to have a handful of really nice dribbles and took on like 3 different players from Mainz and 3 different players from Köln. I mean, how many countless set pieces did he whip in beautifully to set up the Witsel goal? I think he had at least 2 or 3 corners in the Köln game that were beautiful and Hummels could have put away or other players could have put away. So Reina, I mean, still room for improvement. He's not really up to speed much, but he's definitely getting there.
Yeah, I'm a big Reina fan. Reina's a big reason, kind of what got me on Dortmund, like as a Dortmund supporter and fan, anyways. So I'm a big Reina fan. Obviously, as Americans, we're big Reina fans. Excited that he's back in the U.S. men's national team roster. Hopefully, he doesn't get injured. I am a little concerned there, but I think to come in and of course he was injured for so long. We saw him finally come back and start and then get injured again in 25 minutes, which just pushed back him even more. But to see him come in this game, and I thought he looked good too. And one thing you have to keep in mind is how crazy this season's been as far as the lineup changes and what style are we playing. Can you imagine how hard it would be for him who's been out so long to try to slot in and think, where am I supposed to go? Because it's when the team doesn't know what they're doing, like and I know a lot of his recovery time, he wasn't in Germany. He went back to the States. I guess I can say came back to the States. Yeah. So he's been so disconnected from the team almost. Now, obviously, they work him in and get him to learn the system, but what's the system? And it's changing all the time. So I think for him to come in and still play decent in a spot where he might not know his exact role. And I know towards the end of last season, too, he was kind of in and out.
Yeah.
Started this season with Rosa coming in immediately before he got injured, in and out. So I think for him to come in and play decent and not look completely lost is a positive thing. And he obviously made a positive impact.
Yeah, he did make a positive impact. And again, he's only played 8 league matches this game. That is not a lot of football since, August. So yeah, all credit to him. I think he really set up a lot of our chances in both of these games. But yeah, going into that second half at Mainz, it was already a pretty physical game. You mentioned before, if you look at our jerseys after either of these last 2 games, you could think we went through a bar fight. I mean, players' jerseys were ripped up. I know in the second match against Köln, Bellingham's, or it might have been actually against Mainz that Bellingham
Reyna had his shorts on both sides of his shorts were ripped.
Reyna's shorts were ripped. Bellingham's boots had that hole in the side, so he couldn't even use those to get him a whole new pair.
Yeah, they didn't even call. Was not even a foul.
Yeah,
boot ripped in half pretty much.
Anyway. Yeah, it became more physical. It was a pretty scrappy game, but once Haaland came on in our 55th minute, I already mentioned again that he didn't have much of an impact, but our body language lifted. We looked like we were a little bit more comfortable going forward, and I would argue like 85% of the second half against Mainz, we were in their third. I was rewatching it earlier, and there was a lot of stoppages, be it for injuries, people getting, heated, or substitutions, you name it. But I really do think we spent a lot. It looked like at least 10 minutes at a time where we would just be in their third, in their box, and then they would clear and, maybe get it out of bounds kind of in the middle third to our third, but we push it right back in and pin them back in their box. So I think a pretty decent second half. Again, it's extremely difficult to go to Mainz and pull that off. This is a team that is well managed and well disciplined and can stay compact and defend really well. They were cutting our passing lanes a lot this game, but we were able to finally break them down.
And just, as far as how strong they are defensively and at home, they've only lost one other home game all season.
You know what? I was looking for that stat, but I forgot about it. That's exactly what I was going to mention.
So to go to Mainz and get 3 points is incredible. And I mean, no, it wasn't the prettiest game, and I think how up and down this season's been and the inconsistency. We want to see us dominate. Us as fans want to see us dominate, but we gotta soccer, football. It's not always pretty. No. And some of those sometimes the most important wins are those ones where you can grind it out and fight. And when you think of it, when you take out the aspect of like how up and down the season's been and just look at it as a tough, gritty road win, 3 points like on the road in a tough atmosphere, that's you can't ask for anything more. That's just that's what you need. And they got it done, got the job done, and it was great.
Absolutely. And I know you're like a relatively new Dortmund supporter, but
don't tell everyone.
Yeah. But you can go back, look through the past 7 or 8 years, and look at every single season, how many points we dropped on these types of occasions. I mean, I could go back and look at under every single manager you could think of since Klopp, where we would just have these games where we're facing mid-table teams and consistently drop points. And, you're looking back late April, early May, and you're going, wow, if we had an extra 3 or 4 points that we didn't drop earlier in the season, we would be right there with Bayern Munich. And yet every single season we're dropping those points for no reason against those kind of teams. So, I mean, Mainz was in fact a huge win. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in the want of to play really well and play great attacking football and scoring a lot of goals. But you just have to like remember how tough football is.
Yeah.
And how important those kind of wins can be, and just take the 3 points when it's on the road. It's never going to be easy.
No, absolutely not. And the only time I could ever think back to where we're even close to this kind of, or had close to those kind of victories, was in the 18-19 season, which was, I believe, Favre's first year. But that's whenever Witsel was easily one of our best players that season, and he was able to really solidify our midfield and be a classic defensive midfielder. And he brought so much composure and was able to get so many interceptions and bring so much stability to our back four or three, or you name it. But that was the only really time where I could look back on and we were like neck and neck with Bayern all season. And that's because we got these crucial road wins or just wins in general against these mid-table teams that are the, gritty, physical, 50-50 ball games,
Mm-hmm. And I mean, on the note of Witsel, obviously that's how we got this
the
win. We didn't even mention
who would've thought?
We didn't mention the goal, but it came from Reyna, free kick from Reyna outside. I mean, it's pretty well outside the 18.
It was close to their half. It almost looked like.
It was pretty far out. And this was the 87th minute. I guess how were you feeling when the clock is winding down? Did you think we were gonna have any chance of breaking through?
Yeah, I was starting to sweat a bit by like the 74th minute. Honestly, I was like, this very well could look like a 0-0 game. Both teams are just really going for it, or at least Dortmund were. But you don't know if you're going to pull that off with the attacking lineup that we had at the time. There's Haaland was back, but he wasn't looking up for it. And other than that, you weren't really having many players that are going to go and attack like that. So who would have thought whenever Reyna whipped that in, you see Witsel getting his boot on the end of that, man.
It was pretty wild. I will say on Haaland, I know these last two games, it's weird for him to not score. He's fallen below his goal per game ratio, which is pretty wild. Because he just produces goals. That's just what he does. So maybe if he wants to just bang in a hat trick or two the next couple of games to get that ratio back up, that'd be great. But even with him not playing well, he's such a big presence for the defensive line. It kind of opens things up and creates chances a little bit, and leads to Witsel having a little more space to get that goal. And I mean, that ball by Reyna was just,
it was a peach.
Fantastic.
It was an absolute peach. I already mentioned before, but that wasn't the only one that he whipped in either of those games. He's could very well be a new set piece taker for us. I would not be complaining at all. But yeah, you mentioned already Haaland not having that great of a game. I didn't think Malen did either. He had some pretty poor decision making. I've said time and time again that I think that's arguably his biggest weakness is his decision making. I think he's got plenty of the ability. You and I talk about him having those quick snapshots, every game and kind of getting robbed by the post. But I just think he makes these weird decisions at times. It's like, no, obviously you're not supposed to do that. I mean, his shot in the 65th minute, watching that back in slow motion, the one that went like completely out of play for a throw in, it wasn't even a goal kick. He was going with it with the outside of his boot. And it looked completely unnecessary. I feel like if you put your laces through that or try to whip it in with the inside of your foot, you're going to have a much better chance at testing the goalkeeper and hopefully netting one. But yeah, Malen's definitely not his best game either.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to Köln?
Yeah.
All right. So first, just want to shout out to the St. Louis supporters group or St. Louis fan club, Borussia STL. We went to go watch the game at Amsterdam Tavern. It's a great soccer bar here in St. Louis. Weather was fantastic. It was a big day.
It was a perfect day.
There were so many games going on too. So we're watching next to all the Liverpool was playing in the FA Cup. All those people were wild. Also, El Clasico was about to start. So it was a good day. It was a good day. I was feeling very positive going into this game. I was just really excited to. This is my first outing with them. Carver, you've been involved with them for a long time, so this was my first time to go watch a game with the whole squad. And so shout out to them. So it was really cool. Had some beers. Carver had a veggie burger. There was a dog there.
There was a dog there. Can confirm there was a good boy.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a glitch. Carver and I are just so in sync.
Yeah.
And we clearly don't know what to say, so we both just say at the exact same time. No, but like I said, I was excited and looking forward to the game, not just with all those reasons, but I think coming off the last game, going to this one, I had some optimism, and it seemed like the title race was on, so I was feeling pretty good. What were your thoughts?
2 clean sheets in a row with that makeshift back four, and we really have some momentum building going into this one, so I felt pretty good too. I mean, again, going to be a huge ask. Köln sit mid-table, I think even above Mainz at this point.
I know they're like on the verge of Europe. I know watching back highlights, and that's what they were talking about. It's like I think they had a chance to go 6th if they won, and it was another away game for us. This was their stadium. I think it was the first time they were back to full capacity, so 50,000 sellout.
But I do want to say the away section for Dortmund was pretty nuts as well. I mean, not only was it packed to the brim with flags and looked like a lot of the ultras, but as well as, I mean, there were flares going on and everything. So you had that little slice of home in the stadium, which is always nice. But yeah, this game was going to be a tough one. But at the same time, we also had a handful of players back. I mean, obviously you had Rafa Guerrero. You had Mats Hummels, who, I mean, was on the bench, but still in the squad. That's a huge ask. Haaland starting. I mean, you name it. So, you're finally getting some personnel back that we've been wanting to see for the majority of this season. And it was pretty disappointing that we couldn't pull off the win. This is one of the few games we didn't dominate in possession. I think we ranked like 3rd in the league for possession at like 59 or 60% average every game, but Köln looked like they had most of the ball, and a rare moment in history also where we had trouble going forward more than at the back. Again, a 3rd game in a row where I think our defense played really, really well, but we just weren't really that clinical, and we missed a lot of great opportunities, and sadly. Yeah,
coming into this game, even I was expecting kind of the same back four. I didn't realize that Kanji was back. Maybe it's because we didn't do an episode in between, so we hadn't talked about who's coming back. I was surprised to see Kanji in the lineup, but I was looking forward to the back line we'd been rocking, our makeshift back line. I'm like, yeah, let's bring him on. Let's do it. And then, but we did see, when they even announced the lineup, they had Schultz starting, and he got a knock in the warm-up, so we saw Guerrero come back at left back. We had Akanji and Chan in the middle. Paslak, of course, Kobel played in the goal. We had Witzel and Bellingham. Dahoud was out due to yellow card suspensions. Reina started. Wolf, Hazard, and like you said, Malen. Not Malen. I'm so used to saying Malen up top. It's Holland. Holland back on top.
Yeah, so you mentioned already that Dahoud was out for suspensions, and he was, really missed today. Dahoud was missed. Royce was really missed. Both of those players, I think, would have made a huge difference in a game like this. Someone in the middle that has that vision and is able to break those initial pressing lines of Köln and could make those, 1 or 2 final passes in their third that could put chances away, because at times I think we were really missing those kinds of players. I mean, Reina's terrific at linking up the defense and attack, don't get me wrong, but again, we already mentioned that coming off of such a long injury and he's still getting into the swing of things, and also I think some of his weaknesses to the game are kind of exposed in games like this, so you need a little bit more of the veterans and Royce and Dahoud to really help build those attacks.
Yeah, it's been how long is Royce out? Because
he's had an illness for I looked up today. Side note, I could not. It shocked me. The last game that Royce played was in the 2-2 tie against Rangers back in February.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because it seems like he's been gone so long, but at the same time, it's like I'm expecting him to be out, but now it's like, wait, it's been so long. Like, where'd he go?
I still have no. I've looked online to see what kind of illness he had, and I couldn't find anything. But man, I hope he's okay, because usually even a bad illness is maybe a 5 or 6 day thing, maybe.
I think that's why I got confused, because I remember hearing the original news. I'm not as I don't remember being as concerned as when we saw the news of Meunier and Akanji so many times and everyone else, because I think it was so subtle. It's like, oh, he's got an illness and he'll be back next game, and it's like, wait, it's been a couple more games and he's still out. Where is he? Were you surprised Hummels didn't start, or?
A little bit. You and I also mentioned that whenever Schultz had that picked up that knock in warm-ups, that Guerrero was able to start. And I was with you, and I looked at you, and I was like, I mean, if Guerrero could have started to begin with, he probably should have started, right?
Yeah.
I know Schultz has been in decent form, but I think if Guerrero has the fitness to play, then he should play. And same with Hummels. If he was able to play already, I feel like we could have used him earlier. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the Guerrero thing, I mean, obviously he's fit enough to play, and maybe I think they used him because they had to, but since he has been out for a while, with that thought in mind, it was probably like, we'll give him 30 minutes at the end or second half or something, and it's like, well, never mind, we have to use him completely. Hummels, though, so one thing to keep in mind with him, he had COVID, so there's a possibility that he's still not 100%, like maybe his, I don't know, COVID can wreck your lungs a little bit. So if he's not feeling 100% to play a full game, like that was my thought there. So he might be able to come on for a little bit, but he can't manage a full 90. So, but I mean, I was not mad to see Chan, and I still think Chan played well. He had some great like runs and passes through the middle too, and
again, bossing our defense. He was one of the best players on our squad that game. I think hands down, he's really becoming a staple in our defense, especially the past month or so. But going back to also Rafa, I think he just continues to have such a rough season. He didn't really impress me much at all in this game. He looked like he was a little bit more in that attacking role, or at least kind of like in the left mid position, a little bit more than the left back at times. And that's what we've been wanting to kind of push him towards out because, he's just not a defender. It's just simple as that. He's not a defender. And he had like a decent spell when he was under Favre for our first year with Favre because we're such a defensive-minded team, or at least for Borussia Dortmund. And he was able to kind of slot himself into that system a little bit better. But, with Rosa just not putting much attention to detail on our defense for most games, Rafa's game just continues to suffer whenever he's playing further back in the left back position. But I don't know, even whenever he was attacking this game, I just still didn't think he looked that great. I don't think he looked that sharp, and hopefully it's just a matter of, him coming off of COVID, because I think this is arguably his worst year under us, in my opinion. I mean, injuries aside and everything, just him simply, whenever he is playing.
Yeah, has he played through the midfield before? 'Cause I know that's something you've mentioned.
Yeah, under different systems. Whenever Tuchel was our manager, he played almost like a center mid at times, and he was, a lot more pushed up the field. But I just think that's where he's at his best, is more in the midfield rather than playing like a strict left back and a back four.
Do you think there's anything along the lines of? I know when they brought Schultz in, had a little higher expectations than what he's delivered. Do you think that's maybe since Schultz hasn't done what they wanted or performed up to the level that they expected, that's why they kind of Guerrero has been more in the back? I just don't know if you have any like insight on that specifically, like why he's
not much, honestly. I wish I could tell you more, but I just think maybe he's just kind of going through a rough patch in his form this season. But yeah, I just hope he can continue to improve on his game. But we had some other players that did end up playing decent though. I mean, Wolf scoring, what is it, 2 in 3 games now, or 3 in 4 games? One of those two.
I think he's got 3 goals on the season.
Yeah. And a brilliant finish with his left foot.
I thought I'd turn to you when we were like celebrating when that goal goes in. It was like 8th minute or something. I thought it was Haaland. From the view on the TV and just the touch and the finish. Great, perfect ball by Bellingham, which was amazing.
Yeah. Another beautiful assist by Bellingham. That man just continues to put up every kind of stat you could imagine, really. But
yeah, I thought it was a Haaland goal, and I was thrilled for Haaland to get one because I tweeted before the game.
It was pretty Haaland-esque. I mean, it was a beautiful first touch. He made a great run to initially get the ball and then to finish with your left. I mean, Wolf is a right-footed right winger. And yeah, I kind of, for a second too, I mean, just initially I thought that was like, was that Haaland? I mean, and also on top of that, obviously they look like such similar people, but yeah, Wolf had a good game. Again, now that he's sliding more into the right winger rather than the right back position, I think is starting to perform a lot better. And that his versatility alone going forward, I think should be a staple of why we need to keep him as well. And not only can he play pretty much anywhere out wide, but he's also got just such a great work rate to be able to play on both sides of the pitch. But Yeah, I wish I could say we had much of that going into the second half. I know we had like a decent start and came out to look and score early. We kept our energy up, but I think Köln just kept taking the wind out of our sails, whether it be the shithousery after a bunch of different bad calls by the referee or just like, being unnecessarily physical at times. And I think
the game was so physical.
I think that was the game where they ripped up Jude's boot, if I'm not mistaken. I got to put those two games.
Yeah, it was this game. This was also the game where Reyna's shorts on both sides were ripped all the way up to his waistline, pretty much.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny that they got Jude a replacement pair of boots, but they couldn't get Gio a replacement pair of shorts. It's like you'd think that'd be pretty easy to go and grab from the locker room, but
he does. I mean, he's gonna take his pants off right there on the field on the touchline.
Take them off. Take them off. In perfect English. So anyway, we ended up just tying, and pretty disappointing game from the team overall. Just, I think, simply put, it wasn't good enough, especially from Haaland. I mean, Haaland had a handful of chances this game and missed opportunities, whether it be like in the 55th minute. I know he was like robbed of a chance, I think around the 70th minute.
Yeah, he had the one where he did break away through the middle, which looked like the second chance.
Chan got fouled, and they like called it after he got there, and they didn't play the advantage. But yeah, kind of disappointing.
He did have another chance. I think it was before that where he was 1-on-1 with the keeper, and he should have put it away.
Yeah.
So we do have a Twitter question about Haaland. I was going to ask it earlier, but it's more tied to this game, I think. At Ben Howes, on the note of Haaland, he said Erling looks lazy and has no ambition. He didn't deserve to play against Köln. Donnie was wrongfully benched.
I don't think he was lazy. I think he's always looked. I mean, if he thinks he looked lazy that game, I guess this person thinks Haaland always looks lazy because he's not kind of the striker that's going to go and press a bunch like Aubameyang or anything like that. And but I will give you he kind of looks like he is lacking that ambition. I remember whenever his first year or so with us. I mean, just like the hunger that he had to always score and just constantly yelling and screaming and sprinting everywhere to, get a hold of the ball and really put his foot through things and just rocket them whenever he had shots on goal. But he just looks like he doesn't have that kind of drive, at least not as much. I think it's just a matter of everything else that's going around him off the pitch,
Yeah, part of it for me is my thought is just because he's been so in and out, and although we're used to seeing him come in and score, like he has no issue for the most part. It seems like he has no issue doing that. We've talked about the Wolfsburg goal, which is in our intro, the big one. Haaland's back like he's never been away.
Yeah.
And just we've been expecting it. I don't know if it's maybe a confidence thing where he came back and he had some missed chances. Even that first one where everyone thought he should have put away, he thought he should have put it away, and maybe that just brought him down a little bit, and he lost some confidence. So on the note of Malen, though, we talked about it before. Malen hasn't been that great either in the last few games.
Yeah.
He hasn't been banging in goals. So I don't agree with.
Which, I mean, it only proves he's human. He's been doing it for I don't know how long now and being an incredibly one of the best strikers in the world, really. So, I mean, it's bound to happen that you're going to have some dips. So I just hope he can continue some sort of form going forward, which, we'll preview Leipzig, but I think he's going to actually really come back and kind of show us what he's made of going into our game on April 2nd at home.
Yeah, I don't think he should be dropped. I think he needs to he needs to be in the lineup. He should be starting.
I think
it's going to come through eventually.
If anything, Hazard should have been dropped for Malen. I agree that Malen probably should have played this game. I know he had a rough one before that, but I still think he's a player that should be getting plenty of minutes, and I would argue picked over Hazard.
Were you surprised that we didn't see Malen come in sooner? Because Haaland subbed out 87th minute.
I am. I wish he would have gotten more minutes, but he didn't do much with the minutes that he had. But, I mean, overall, we just weren't clinical in general. I don't think it's really comes down to one or two players. We just really couldn't put away our chances. We had a handful of opportunities and just couldn't score. And our decision-making wasn't the best. I think that cost us arguably the most. I mean, again, it was mistakes going forward, not really at the back.
Yeah. I this game. So I mean, obviously we could have done more to win this game. I was so confused watching this game when we started making subs. I don't know if you really took note of this, but the subs seemed to be all over the place. Granted, I mean, we used almost all of our subs, and I don't know who else you would have brought in, but some of the positional things. I was standing next to someone, I don't remember who it was, but at one point someone subbed in, and we were both like, I don't even know what formation we're playing right now because I don't know where these subs are going and who's like.
I mean, half the time we don't know Rosa's tactics. I still have trouble myself, but I think what you were talking about was I think it was like Paslak coming off.
Hummels came on for Paslak. I think Brandt came on for Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mullen ended up coming in for Hazard. Pongracic came on for. I don't know. It was kind of weird.
It was pretty confusing. Which
Pongracic I think Pongracic and Renier. Oh my God! Now you're gonna say. How long have I been in Dortmund?
You really don't need to even remember Renier's name because not only is he going to be leaving soon, but he didn't do like anything since he's been here. I mean, the man's been here 2 years now, and I still have no idea what his qualities are. But I think it was just a matter of Rosa throwing the kitchen sink because you kind of had nothing to lose at that point. I mean, you can lose the game, but it's only one less point, and it looked like already at that point if you were going to tie, it was probably going to be a small chance you were going to be able to catch Bayern anyway. So
we had another Twitter question since we touched on Rosa's playing style and tactics from Tom at TommyR344. Are you convinced by Rosa's playing style and tactics? My answer to that is I have no idea what his playing style or tactics are. So no.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he said in an interview a few weeks back that there hasn't been a single game all season that you can really give an identity and show this is Borussia Dortmund under Marco Rosa. So, I mean, I think we're going to have to wait an entire season to see. And that sucks to say, but, you just kind of have to go through some of these rebuilding phases. And looks like this season was one of them. I mean, we were pretty cursed from the get-go with the injuries and the bad cup kits. So, am I convinced? I guess not, but at the same time, I don't think we've really seen a game yet where we can, like a single game where we can really, point to and say this is the football that we're supposed to be playing. You could argue like the first half against Freiburg, but that's one half. It's football is 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it multiple times. You don't want to use anything as an excuse. You don't want to use injuries as an excuse, but it's a genuine issue that he's had to deal with. We talked about it before. Yep. It's like he honestly has half the squad that he thought he was going to have coming in because with how consistent the injuries have been, it's just been wild. Which, on that note, that's kind of our next point. Yep. We got news about a couple more injuries. I guess the Schultz one isn't as surprising because we found out that he was out just before that game, but then we also got word that Paslak is out injured too for a few weeks. So.
Yeah, at least a few weeks, which is just it's beyond comedy at this point. Do you want to take a guess that in 2022 alone, how many injuries that we've had? Want to take a guess?
Is it more than 10?
Like missed at least a game, not just like a quick, knock and left training early or something like that. Like missed at least one game. You said at least 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 12. Seven of which were starters.
Just in 2022. So
just in this
the last 3 months.
A dozen injuries, 7 of them are starters. I mean, that's just...
Which proves the point. Rosa hasn't been able to implement anything because all he's trying to do is makeshift everything.
Or at least implement much. And it's funny that we're sitting here right at the end of March, almost beginning of April. And where were we sitting here in November saying, like, I think our luck can really turn around these next few weeks. And by the time 2022 runs around...
The stats are against us. We're going to have more injury.
And just all this shit happens. It's, again, beyond comedy. And a handful of them, they're out for so goddamn long, too. I mean, Thomas Meunier is out till, like, late May. Zagadou, I can't imagine is going to be back in the coming weeks. Tigges is out for God knows how long. Mokoko's injury got pushed back. Holland had like a month and a half thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. It does not end.
So as far as a right back, what, Chan going out to right back?
So yeah,
maybe.
with this, I guess
if Hummels can come back in.
Yeah, it bleeds into our preview next week for Leipzig, but I would put in Chen as a right center half in the back three, and I'll just leave it at that. No spoilers.
And I mean, we know people are going to be out for a while, so I was going to say on a positive note, we got some time off to rest because we have international break, but really we know these people are going to be out for a while. But I mean, we'll just jump into the preview. I mean, we are gonna be back next week. We're on the international break, so our next game is until April 2nd. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, no one gets injured on the international break. We do have quite a few guys going out. I'll run through these before we quickly talk about Leipzig. Okay. Which, I mean, we mentioned we're going to be back next week to give a real preview about Leipzig. Yeah. So maybe we'll just run through these. So we have 9 first team guys going out, and then plus we have a guy on the U20s who's.
I'll put money right now that there's going to be at least one knock. I'll put money on it from someone, and from the international break is going to pick up a 2-week knock.
Yeah, like I said, the stats, the odds are against us. So, Reyna, I am excited to see Reyna in USA, which USA's got some knocks too, so they're going to need Reyna. It's not like he's going to play a small role. Like, he'll be playing. So, USA does have a few big games in this window, taking on Mexico Thursday night. Then they have a must-win game against Panama on Sunday. Then they play Costa Rica next Wednesday, so big games there. Guerrero is playing for Portugal, who are in a knockout group.
Yep, against
playoff group.
Serbia. No,
they're playing Turkey on Thursday. If they win, and say Italy win, Italy's in the same pool, so either Italy or Portugal, or maybe both of them, aren't going to make it to the World Cup, which is insane.
It is insane, given that the personnel that Portugal have. I mean, they've become one of the wettest teams in Europe on paper these past few years. I mean, pick a position, and they have one of the best players in Europe, hands down. So, yeah, Guerrero, their big game is on Thursday. They take on Turkey if you want to watch that. Bellingham got called up for England, although they're already through the World Cup, so they're just playing a friendly against Switzerland. We got a couple guys playing for Switzerland, and they play Saturday. Of course, we have Kobel and Akanji for Switzerland. Sommer is the Swiss's number one keeper, right? So yeah. Kobel might get. He might. I mean, he's gonna be taking over that role here pretty soon. Sommer's well into his 30s, So England, Switzerland play on Saturday. Malen is up for the Netherlands. They also have a friendly versus Denmark on Saturday. Holland for Norway. Also a friendly. It'll be a good opportunity for both of those attackers to pick up some confidence and form. Versus Slovakia on Friday is Norway. Pongracic is going to be out with Croatia, if you care to watch them at all, against Slovakia on Saturday. And Hazard is going to be with Belgium, another friendly, not till next Tuesday. So it's kind of it is a bummer. I much prefer. At this stage, when it's all friendlies, in group stages, it's not as exciting. Of course, I'm hyped for USA, but I like waking up on my Saturday and Sunday mornings and watching football. So, but there is you can catch a lot of our guys. There's going to be some good stuff to watch over the next week. But yeah, then the next Dortmund game is not till April 2nd versus Leipzig. Yeah, which we will preview next week. Yeah, maybe we'll give a little recap of how the guys did internationally. Yeah. If there's any standout performances, we'll probably talk on that. Yeah, absolutely. We don't just have U.S. listeners. We got some international listeners. So, but I don't know where from. I'm not going to pull it up and go through everything. But yeah, we'll talk. And hopefully we're going to come back and the news isn't Reyna got injured again. Yeah. So hopefully it's just all positive performances. Bellingham out till mid-September. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening. Again, you can find us wherever you want to listen to podcasts on all the podcast places, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can even find us on YouTube, all by searching the BVB Podcast. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. Please reach out, give us a follow, say hi at the BVB Pod. If you want to, you can also email us, thebvbpod@gmail.com. My name's Jake Carver. Thanks for hanging with me, as always. Always a blast, and here's to a healthy, safe international break. Everyone cross your fingers, dot your I's, go to the Vatican if you need. Yeah. I don't know if this is real wood. But all right. He's knocking on my head. That's what you guys can hear right now. He's currently punching me. All right, have a great week. We'll see you later. Bye. Bye.